Hi, this is Stacia, and I wanted to share a puzzle out of a book that I'm studying called Chess Tactics from Scratch. And this is by Martin Wettisnik. And this book was recommended by my chess coach because tactics are a weak part of my game, and I want to definitely strengthen that. So, this is actually, let's see, this is actually exercise 21 in the back portion of the book. And it's black to move and win. Okay. But before I give you the answer, I do want to go over, what to look for in positions like this. So I'm going to kind of go through my thought process. So the first thing I do when I look at a position like this is ask myself, what's the material count? That's a really basic thing that we should know. So if you haven't looked at that, tell me what you think, who has the material advantage and why. Okay, and so basically if you do the count, you'll notice that black has 2 minor pieces and that white has 1. But on the other hand, white has 2 rooks and black only has 1. So you can easily see that black is down in exchange here. In addition, and they both have queens, but if you do a pawn count, you'll notice that black has 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns, and that white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would say that just purely on a material basis, that white is +4 here. So the exchange is +2 and the pawns are +2. So white is +4 based on that alone. In addition, you should definitely be looking at this pawn on the f7 square because that is a very strong pass pawn. It's currently blockaded. But black also has a strong pass pawn on the c file. Alright, so the next thing I look at after material is what are the pieces attacking? So you kind of want to get an idea of what the pieces are doing. And I'm very systematic when I do this, at least for now until I get faster. So one thing I noticed right away is that the rook on b8 is x-raying this rook. This is an undefended piece. So we always want to be mindful of our undefended pieces. And this rook is defended. So you can actually see that a bishop move here would create a discovered attack on this rook. Now the rook is equal value with this rook. So I don't know that this would be a particularly strong discovery since the rook could take and we just simply recapture. But it's something that you want to keep in mind for sure. Another thing that you'll want to notice is this, obviously. So the queen is x-raying the king. And this is a huge problem. So discoveries on a king are extra powerful. And of course, if our pawn simply moves to the c2 square, we'll have a nice discovered check on this king. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind. I also noticed that the rook on a1 is x-raying the black king. This doesn't seem particularly dangerous. I don't see a way this pawn's going to move out of the way just yet, but you want to be aware of this kind of stuff. Okay, and I think that does it. You may also want to notice the activity of the black bishop. So it is possible at some point that maybe the bishop will come to the b4 square and check the king. So you do want to keep that in mind. And the bishop also has the ability to attack this queen, although I don't know how it would ever get to that square. It's definitely covered twice by the white rook and the white queen. Okay, so the next step after you do this sort of assessment is to go through the basic checklist. So it's black to move, and we want to look at checks, captures, and threats. So number 1 is checks, and I actually saw 2 checks. I saw the move b2 check, so the discovery on the king immediately. But then there is another check, which looks weird, which is the move rook b1 check. And so what I would do here is basically, look at how white would respond to these two checks. So, if the move c2 check, I think pretty much the king could just move out of the way here. So like, let's just say king e2. Or I'm sorry, that's d2. King e2. So getting out of the way of the queen. And the queening square is defended by both the queen and the rook. And, all right, we do win the bishop. So that's one potential line. Although in this position, we're down so much material, I'm not sure this is enough. And in fact, the computer says white is still slightly better. So the next thing I would do is look at the other check. And this looks crazy, but it's always important to evaluate these anyways. And, I quickly saw that when you play rook b1 check, white doesn't really have any good options here. So the natural thing would be to take the rook. But then quickly you can see that c2 check is a much bigger problem now, because c2 comes with an extra threat of attacking the rook. And not only that, the pawn doesn't necessarily have to queen on the c1 square anymore. It can actually take the rook on b1 and create a queen. And so herein lies the problem. So let's say white tries to just move out of the way like before. Well, now we do have the move c takes b1 equals queen. And this is winning for black. And in fact, the computer says you can even throw in this intermediate move. Queen takes bishop check. And after something like rook b5, the computer wants. So rook b5. Just blocking the check, I guess. Yeah, so this looks like a computer desperation move. We're going to check and then king f3. And we're definitely going to get a queen here. All right, so basically, as long as you follow that structure of checking your checks first, you're going to find rook b1 check and see that it's winning. Thanks for watching.